This is the Self from Time to Time by D.H. Mellor in analysis. So cool. So here we go. Let me drop the volume a tad on this. But yeah, cool. Yeah, as always, everyone is free to comment. Let me know what's going on. It's my first time reading it, so it's like, here we go. It's 2 o'clock now. From the fact that a token of the sentence type, it's 2 o'clock now. All right, for just people out there, a token means this. Like, you can say it's 2 o'clock now. Anyone can say that. Like, I'm saying it right now. When the author said it's 2 o'clock now, the first time they ever said it, it was a different time. But that sentence right there on the page, it's 2 o'clock now. Like, that's a token of every time it gets said. Of course, it gets said at different times, so sometimes it's true and sometimes it's false. When it's 2 o'clock, it's true. But when it's not, it's false. So, like, this is the thing. So, from the fact that a token of the type of sentence, it's 2 o'clock now, can be used to give valuable information, concludes that selves have only momentary existence. Yeah, so, I mean, you can say sentences with nows, and it's momentary. This is kind of crap already. Like, Zemach concludes that selves only have momentary existences. That's really, really, really pushing it, Zemach. Because, like, I can say a lot of things. Like, you can say, like, you're rich. That doesn't mean that you have money in the bank. That just means you said you're rich. And so the fact that you say now doesn't mean you only exist in a momentary state. It just means that, like, now, like, might mean something. Might have a meaning. Okay, but see, this is already funny. Yeah, because, like, how much weight can you put on a now? Just because someone can say now, it doesn't mean that our existence is momentary. It's a stretch. Okay, while the author shares Bernard Williams' distaste for immortality, I confess my present self still hopes for more than the mayfly's span of life, and Zemach does not persuade me that I can't have it. Believing, moreover, that others, perhaps even some future Zemach selves, may wish to share my hope, I hasten now to reassure them. A less bizarre conclusion can and should be drawn from the familiar facts and arguments to which Zemach redirects our attention. There we go. Okay, so the question is what is our existence like? The fact that we can say something meaningful about a very short time slice and now doesn't mean we don't exist over time. So it's like do you just blink in and out of existence every like half second? Yeah, semi access. Or like when someone sends you a text message that says, "I'm here," and I'm all like, "Well, yes, that's tautological, dear. Thanks for sharing." Yeah. No, I mean, you're saying something meaningful, but it doesn't mean like in that momentary slice of like infinitely small time. I mean, that's nuts, which is weird. But like Zemach did argue it. The truth conditions of any token of one, like when it's 2 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock, are not in dispute. Yeah, everyone knows how to tell time. A token of it is true if it is produced at 2 o'clock, otherwise it is false. The time of utterance completely fixes its truth value. There is no scope for anything else to affect the truth value tokens of one. Specifically, the pastness, presentness, or futurity of the time 2 o'clock to which they refer cannot affect their truth value, even though one appears to say that 2 o'clock has the property of presentness. And the same goes for tense statements of any complexity, as the stock semantics for tense logic makes clear, albeit unintentionally. Yeah, so if you say anything about time, it's either true given what time it was said at, like relative to that, or not. But like, that's how time works. That's really not in under dispute. This semantic shows, if nothing else, how the temporal truth conditions of a tensed statement are fixed entirely by how much earlier or later its utterance is than various other events in time explicitly or tacitly referred to in it. Yeah, it's relative, like what did you say? It's like in 10 minutes? Well, if in 10 minutes that thing happens, then that relative statement makes sense, otherwise it doesn't. The supposed properties of pastness, presentness, or futurity, whether of these events or times, or as tense logic prefer, the facts of their occurrence, have no scope at all to enter into the truth conditions of any tensed utterance. And since their doing so would provide the only reason for supposing any time, event, or fact really to possess these properties, we see that there is no such reason. Yeah, I mean, basically, we tell time like relative to the now. and that's not a big deal. Since moreover McTaggart anticipated Zemock, and this is McTaggart 1908. This is a classic paper, I think. I forget who McTaggart is. I've read people referencing McTaggart in like 1908 before. Anticipated Zemock and showing the contradictions inherent in this supposition. We have had the best of reason to deny it. Nothing can be distinguished in reality as being past, present, or future, except in the tenseless relational sense in which events later than a time may be said to be future to it, earlier event past at it, and simultaneous events present at it. Nor, therefore, can any other real non-relational distinction be consistently supposed to rest on these illusory ones. In particular, as Zemock observes, it is nonsense to say that the past or the future are not fully real. Oh, A theory versus B theory. Thank you, Valpo. And yeah, these are big theories of time, and like this is what everyone uses. Like these A theory, B theory of these are big distinctions in philosophy of time. We can go into that later if it comes up. Okay, it is also nonsense to distinguish the past from the future in other ways still current among philosophers, as being objectively fixed as opposed to open, actual as opposed to possible, unique as opposed to multiple, or certain as opposed to chancy. All this is nonsense, and it's time it stopped. This person's angry. Oh my god. So much nonsense going along here now. Tense, in short, is not an aspect of reality, but the way truth conditions of tokens of certain sentence types depend on when they are produced, just as spatial token reflexivity expressions here 16 miles northeast make the truth conditions of tokens of other sentence types depend on where they are produced. Okay, so this person wants to do away with all these different sort of ways you might think about time. Look, the only thing that the author here is saying is you figure out the truth or falsity of a statement, and we're talking about the token of the statement. So we're just talking about the statement, not the way the world actually is, based on relatively, does the thing happen relative to the now? And then you're talking about the statement, not the way the world is, but is the statement, does the statement hold or not? Now, to these sentence types, there corresponds definite states of belief that it is now 2 o'clock, that Eli is 16 miles away northeast, whose truth conditions likewise depend on when or where they're held. Yeah, because if it's like relative to me, then like I have to believe something here. The truth conditions of tenseless belief, for example, that the 1979 Cup final started at 2 o'clock, and their spatial equivalents, for example, that Eli 16 miles northeast of Cambridge, do not, by contrast, depend in this way on when or where they are held. A tensed belief state is therefore never identical with a tenseless one, and consequently neither are the meanings of the sentences expressing them. There is, as Pryor and others have rightly maintained, no tenseless translation of tensed discourse, even though there is no tense in the reality that determines whether it is true. Okay, let me just explain that real fast. When I believe that I'm a certain distance away from something, there is no fact of the matter because it has to do with my belief. It has to do with the fact of the matter of like me believing where I am or what time it is. And so if I think the time is wrong and then I say 10 minutes from now, but I think the time is wrong, it still holds that 10 minutes from whatever time I thought. So that sentence in some sense is still true, but there is no fact of the matter because there is no now that is like correctly applied. It's correctly applied to my belief. And so this is kind of this has been a problem in philosophy of language and logic for a while. The difference between reality and what people believe. Okay. So that's what I mean. There is no tense in the reality that determines whether it's true because it's not looking at the reality, it's looking at my beliefs. Okay, there is no spatial temporal mystery about this. It merely illustrates the fact that sentences with token reflexives cannot be properly translated by sentences without them, whether the token reflexives be temporal, spatial, or personal. All of this, Pace Zemock, has nothing to do with selves, except insofar as sentient selves are needed to supply the conventions which make linguistic types have specific types of sound and inscription. Tokens of one need not be uttered by a self. Most of them are in fact given out by clocks and not noted by anybody. They could quite well continue to be given out after all of ourselves are dead. Yeah, I mean, you can think of like a computer that just like prints the time. and like we send the computer off into space. They could quite well continue to be given out after all of ourselves are dead. The things books and road signs say would surely retain their truth value in those circumstances, and if they would, so would the deliverances of Big Ben. Now, no one, I trust, thinks Big Ben is a self, let alone a succession of momentary selves. It is rather too far down the chain of being. So it couldn't truly say, Zemox, I am located at 2 o'clock. But, Big Ben being the big clock in England. But it can and repeatedly does truly say, 1, that it is 2 o'clock, which therefore does not, as Zemox asserts, have 5 for its content. Of course, that it is located at 2 o'clock. So this is more of like a spatial thing, using a temporal identifier, 2 o'clock, which is weird, but okay. The fact that Zemox has misplaced the connection between tense and the self. The fact is that Zemox has misplaced the connection between tense and the self. It really lies in the fact that agents need beliefs whose truth conditions change with time in the way those of tensed beliefs do. Since it is the object of all belief to be true, we have to change our tensed beliefs from time to time in order to try and keep them true. And for this purpose, we need what is in effect an internal clock. So if I say something is going to happen in 10 minutes, and then if I continue to think about it, then I have to think about it happening in 9 minutes, then thinking about it in 8 minutes, whatever it was relative to my belief that something was going to happen 10 minutes from my when I said it. Thus, if my tensed belief about 2 o'clock is to remain true, it must change at 2 o'clock to 1 from the belief state I was previously in, namely that 2 o'clock is still future. And this is the very change that is needed to cause me to do at 2 o'clock whatever it is I desire to do then. As Perry 79 has shown, nothing else will do this. No amount of unchanging tenseless belief, however relevant and true, and however combined with specific desire, will prompt me on its own to timely action. So once you think 2 o'clock's in 10 minutes, and then you think it's at 9 minutes, then when you finally think it's at 0 minutes, that's the point. If 2 o'clock is in 0 minutes, that means it is 2 o'clock, but you have to recognize that in your belief. It's like, okay, fine. But if you're just in the statement itself, it does not tell you anything, because you can always say 0 minutes or -1 minute. So the statement itself does not tell you about now. Tensed beliefs are thus indispensable for causing timely action, and therein lies the value of true tokens of 1. I may want to do something at 2 o'clock, and to do it, I need to believe 1 at that time. But this belief does not automatically arrive then. Our internal clocks are far from infallible. The belief may need to be induced, and that is the function of a token of 1. If, when I hear it, it is true, I hear it at 2 o'clock. So if my hearing it causes me at once to believe what I hear, I thereby acquire the true belief I need to prompt me to do what I want at the right time. The value of a true token at 1 depends, therefore, on what, if anything, its hearer want to do at 2 o'clock, and whether, for hearing it, they would have come to believe 1 in time to do it. But that it can be of the greatest value, as Zemox correctly says, is obvious. Yes, shocking. If it's 2 o'clock and you know it's 2 o'clock and you want to do something at 2 o'clock, then go do your thing. This explanation of how tokens of 1 may be valuable does not have to appeal to selves being merely momentary, and that I take to be a virtue of it. Perhaps selves are momentary, though I don't believe that even for a moment, but our use of temporal token reflexives is not a good reason for thinking so. Where Zemox went wrong was in his rejection of his 4. The time at which this very token of now is uttered is equal to 2 o'clock. He may be right to say that 4 is quite unhelpful as an analysis of 1, but it does in fact have the same truth conditions as 1. Indeed, not only for any assertion of 4 star got from 4 by replacing now with any expression whatever has the same truth conditions as the editor has pointed out to me. So you could, the very token of whatever, you say whatever time it is, then it could be equal, in 10 minutes is then 2 o'clock. So you could put any time in there, relative. The reason is that the work of making the assertion token reflexive with respect to time rather than the speaker or place, which in 1 is done by now, is done by 4 star, the time at which this token of. And once that is done, the type of token referred is immaterial. whatever it is, tokens of 4-star, like saying whenever this was said itself, like those of 1, are true if uttered at 2 o'clock and false at all other times. Yeah, so if you say, like, what I'm doing now is it's 2 o'clock, or like at the time at which this is uttered is 2 o'clock, then of course that's right if it is 2 o'clock. So it is in a sense true, as Zemock says, that now is my time, my only time, I have no other. But the reason is not that the self is only momentary. It is simply that if, while I am doing or thinking or experiencing anything, I simultaneously ask myself when, in tense terms, I am doing it, the answer has to be now. This answer token now is made true just by being simultaneous with whatever the question was about, just as a token of 1 is made true by being simultaneous with 2 o'clock. That is all the much overrated experience of being confined in one's perception, thought, and action to the present time amounts to. Okay, I guess, like, this is just a little, like, this sort of a response paper, because it's like, the person was saying, well, we only can have the now. And this person is saying, no, what you do when you're having the now is you're basically you're reflexively talking about what you're talking about, and that's it. And so, of course, it always applies at that time, but that doesn't actually give you information about, like, your existence. It only gives you information about the truth conditions of what you're saying, whether it's true or false. And that's fine. Like, you can think of it in the old, actually, performative sense. That when you say now, you are doing a performance of what it means to be going right now. And so, of course, now is now, because that's what it is to say now. Like, you're performing a reflexive act. You're marking that point reflexively, saying this moment right here that I am referring to. And so that reflexive act, of course, is true, but that's all it is. You're referring to what you're saying at that time. And so how much can you read into that? You know, not a whole lot. I mean, this is just more of a... the author here is claiming it's a linguistic trick, and you shouldn't be reading too much ontology into a linguistic trick. So... yeah, so, I mean, I completely agree with this. Like, basically, the person that the Zemock says is they they got themselves a little foot-tutzed, as it were. They said, look, I only have the now. But, like, just saying that is not sufficiently strong to actually conclude what they wanted, that we only have momentary existence. You only have to momentarily show the truth of something. But, like, the claim from momentary truth of it being exactly 2 o'clock to all of existence being like that is a jump. Okay, so that was, short and sweet. Any questions on this? Like, it's short and sweet. I mean, I don't normally just be like, yeah, I agree with the analysis here, but the analysis was a response, and the person had bitten off more. Zemock had bitten off more than they could chew, basically. And so, basically, yeah, if someone's gonna bite off more than they can chew, you just say, hey, hold your horses. This is not, you can't make such a strong claim on this, one little claim about using the word now. Yeah, let's see. Anything else? I mean, I can say, actually, one little thing about this. They dressed it up a little bit, because this could have been done in half the time, but already it's not even a long paper to begin with. They talked about the reflexivity of stuff, just so for the people out there who was, there was one paper I saw you had where it was about film narration. I will look if it's still around. Yeah. But, like, just in terms of this paper, if we want to talk about, like, how to write a philosophy paper, because this is a good example of a very short paper, is you find somebody who said something wrong. And, of course, it's harder and harder, I found, to publish response papers, because this is basically a response paper. I think it's one of the ones on... that's right. I think it's saved in the tabs there. But here's what you do. You find where they went wrong, and then you make a general statement about philosophy of language or philosophy, like tense to logics here, and that way it's a little bit wider of a response. So what you do is you find something to grab onto, you make your argument, and then you also expand out to the more general logic and philosophy of language area, so that way, you know, you're making a larger claim than just someone is wrong, because someone is wrong is doesn't seem very important. Like, we're all wrong sometimes. So it's not a big deal. But what you want to do is, like I said, it's not that someone is wrong, it's that in being wrong, they have shown something important about philosophy in general. And that's basically it.